I started seeing a pattern. The pattern was that someone's drive, remember the title of my remarks today are the motive of mission, the motivation, what comes from inside of you. And I could see this pattern. I could see really successful people were motivated differently. So I started looking at the relationship in motivation on a little 2-axis graph, where on the bottom I was looking at E², which is ego and economics, just 2 words that start with the letter E in English. Then I was looking at principles, and ultimately I was looking at capacity or ability. On the y-axis, and this is really, really important, especially if you've never seen this, on the y-axis I started asking myself, what is someone's motivation for and commitment to these 3 things? How motivated and committed is someone to their own ego, their own sense of self, or money? Economics in this case means money. How motivated and committed is someone to principles? And how motivated and committed is someone to building capacity? And here's what I found. My experience began to teach me that someone who was motivated and committed to ego, that's the sense of self, and money, at a 5 was neither good nor bad for me until I knew their commitment to the P, principles. And I would say to myself, well, just so you know, and especially for those translating, when I say principles, I'm talking about truth. I'm talking about concentrated truth. Concepts and notions like honesty, which applies in Taiwan, it applies in Tallahassee, Florida. Honesty is a principle. Humility is a principle. Kindness is a principle. Compassion, as we discussed today, is without doubt a principle. These are true elements of life. So when you're motivated more and committed to more principle than necessarily just money, just economics, and just ego, I found this to be a very successful balance. I started referring to this as motive management. Managing why you do what you do. Remember, the title of my remarks today is the motive of mission. Now, sometimes this can happen. Oh, by the way, rule number 1 is keep your ego and economic motivations and commitments beneath your motivation and commitment to principles. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Look at this score. Is this a good thing? Is this good when someone's ego and economic motivations start to become much greater than their commitment to truth, to principles like honesty or humility or civility or patience? And so this can be a dangerous scenario here. And I like to think of this ratio between E and P as motive management. Managing your motives. So the idea here would be keep your E under P. Now, if I add in the capacity score, what that says is how motivated and committed are you to increasing your capacity, your abilities, developing yourself, strengthening yourself, improving yourself. And that's the notion of elevating capacity. And so for me, this becomes the sum of all fear. This is the worst EPC score that you can have, in my opinion, an 828. Are there 828s in our world today? What do you think? Are there people out there that are so motivated and so committed to themselves and to money, they don't really care about truth, they don't really care about living in alignment with true principles, and oh, by the way, their C-score is high and they're pretty smart. They're capable people, but they don't care about the principles. I think we could all pull out a piece of paper and write down a few examples of this. And what I'd like to tell you is this is super dangerous. And while I certainly do think we all fall into the category of saying that person's an 828, the best thing you can do with this principle from our ethos and all of our principles that we teach is not use this as a sword, use this as a mirror. Please don't use the ethos as a sword in this company. Don't use that to attack someone else, but rather simply ask yourself, how do I reflect myself in this ethos so that you invite others to live it as well? Nothing will invite someone to attack these kinds of scores more than if you simply live them yourself. Does that make sense? Good. So keeping E squared under P and driving up C became the mantra for many years. And you know what's interesting for me is now I'm starting to look at the P. I've made it green here on this slide. And I'm saying this is really interesting. Is it just principles that I want to motivate us? The answer is no. So with your permission, and at the very real risk of confusing you, it's now going to become E squared P cubed. And E squared P cubed is going to be not just principles, it's going to be people, and it's going to be purpose. Do you agree?
Yep.
Okay? If you go back and listen to Michelle or any other stories today, if you go back and watch the videos and said, I'm going to watch for principles, people, and purpose, it's going to be screaming at you. But guess what, guys? The money is going to be there. It's going to be there. You just got to stay true and motivated to the people, the purpose, and the principles, and you'll have the money. Don't let that get out of balance and miss the point. So for me, I like to think of it this way. Our motivations should absolutely always be focused on principles, people, and our core purpose. That core purpose is, in fact, our mission. That mission, right? This is a really important concept. To better people's lives and to be a force for good in the world must be known. You've got to know it. You've got to own it. And you've got to energize it for all. That's my next slide. Sorry, I got one in front of myself. Here we go. Oops, I'm backing up. Right here. Guys, this is something really, really powerful that I learned. Oops, I clicked it again. I'm so sorry. I am just trigger happy. Okay, slow down. Here we go. Ready? Boom. Okay. This concept says what? You have to be the teachers of the mission. You have to go out and help people to know it, to own it, and to energize it. When you do, you're living the mission and you become the seed and the fruit. You're driving it forward. So my father-in-law taught me this. The mission must be known, it must be owned, and it must be energized by all. So when I put this mission statement up here now, and you start to think about what it really means when I say a noble purpose, a reason for being. When you talk at Simon Sinek says start with why, here is our why. This is why we exist. To better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. Guys, we have the opportunity for unmatched compassion. Who else can do this? Our products are compassion in a bottle. We're bringing something to people that's very nature is designed to both inspire and awaken hope, and also, right, to breathe energy and life into other people and to reduce suffering. The word compassion, when broken apart, means to suffer with. Compassion just means to suffer with somebody. I love believing that we as an organization can be a compassionate, caring group of people who place principles, people, and purpose above the money and above our self-interests. And we have to remind ourselves of that all the time when we're throwing up pictures of Croatia and getting you all excited. And you're like, I'm going to make that trip. And I say, you want to make the trip? Double down on the mission. Double down, to use a Vegas term, on the mission.